Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. We are June the 23rd, 2025, and we're going to get started on today's episode of Money Matters. I am your host, Huong Luu. I am with Cash Property, and today we're going to do a very interesting calculation here, one that came up during the mastermind, and I'm going to sort of break it out into something a little bit more. And then also because in one of my coaching sessions, and this comes up at some point with all of my coaching sessions, is the idea of how to make more money every single month. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you're like trying to get to 5,000 a month or 10,000 or 20,000 a month. At some point, that number goes up. And then the question becomes, how do I make that much money every single month? Okay. And whether it's just to make that money so that you could pay your bills, or make that money so you could leave your 9 to 5 and have, time, life, freedom type of situation. So let's jump into today's episode of Money Matters. So if you want to make, okay, and in our case, we're going to say 20,000, but it doesn't matter that the amount. If you want to make whatever that number is, you need to start doing this. Okay, so hands down, this is one thing highly recommended that you start doing if you're not already doing it. Okay, and do more of it if you can. Okay, so let's get right into it. Now, of course, there's a disclaimer that I have to say about this because the risk tolerance, you know, yeah, the disclaimer doesn't really apply for today because this just makes so much sense. It doesn't matter what your risk tolerance is. Okay, this totally makes sense. But of course, I do have to say that there's a disclaimer here. So just double check before you go and implement this, but highly recommended that you implement this. Okay. If I'm saying that and it goes against security issues, please somebody put it in the chat. Let me know that what I'm saying is incorrect. But really, I would recommend this to everybody, regardless of your risk tolerance. Okay. So on the screen, you will see an Excel sheet. So we're actually going to reverse engineer how to make whatever money you want to make per month. Okay. So in this case, I'm using 20,000 because that was something that came up in the monthly mastermind where somebody said, hey, Hung, how do I make $20,000 a month? Okay. So let's go through this calculation together. We're going to reverse engineer it. And this is something, this technique on how to reverse engineer something, you can apply that regardless of the industry you're in, whether you're in real estate, whether you have a 9 to 5, whatever the goal is that you have, regardless of the money, or if it's like a weight thing, or if it's the number of books you want to read, or if it's the number of clients that you want to connect with every single month, it doesn't matter. Okay. You can use the same sort of format to reverse engineer what you're trying to do and get a more realistic action plan and get an understanding of where you need to be every single month. Okay, so what we're going to calculate out here is how to reverse engineer how to get this 20,000. And one of the things that you really hands down should do in order to achieve this. Okay, so the idea here is we want to target $20,000 a month. Okay, now most of us work 20 days a month. Okay, and now I'm saying 20. If you are like me, I'm pretty much working almost every day. Like, there's no such thing as a holiday. There's no such thing as weekends. So I'm pretty much working every day. But here's the thing, though, I don't work 8 hours a day. Okay, so we're going to use 20 hours um, a month, 8 hours a day. So you can adjust that however you want, but let's just go with the sort of norm. Okay, so let me just make this a little bit bigger so that everybody can see. Okay, so based on $20,000 a month, and the number of working days is $20, 20 days a month. Okay, that means the number of money that you need to make per day is $1,000. Okay, so basically it's just your 20,000 divided by 20, that gives you $1,000. Okay, so if you were working full-time at a job and you're making 20,000 a month, that means you're making $1,000 a day. Okay, so it's the same idea here. Okay, so now if you're working 8 hours a day that means that your base pay or your base salary or your base earning is $125 an hour. Okay. So it doesn't matter if this is what you're trying to make or if you have a full-time job, this number per hour is your base. Okay. This is pre-tax dollars. Okay. And don't worry about the taxation issue right now. Just focus on the fact that, okay, you know what? Based on these numbers, you're making $125 an hour. Okay. And to calculate that, you just take your $1,000 divided by the number of hours that you work. Okay. And we're saying eight hours a day. Okay. So now, if you want to make $20,000 a month, the one thing that you need to start doing, and you need to start doing this as quickly as possible, if not like say today, is to delegate some of the work that you can delegate out. Some of the low paying stuff that you're doing that you don't need to be doing. Some of your admin, cleaning your house, buying groceries, scanning, marketing, anything that makes less than $125, you should be delegating out. If you can hire somebody to do whatever task it is at less than $125, you should be delegating that out. Okay. So this is coming up because a lot of times we say we want to make $20,000, but then we're doing tasks, we're doing stuff, we're doing things that are not worth $125 an hour. Okay, hands down. So if whatever the goal is that you want, figure out what your base pay is, the minimum amount, and just say, hey, you know what? I can hire somebody to go and do that scanning, that daycare drop off, whatever it is, delegate that out if it's less than $125. Okay, in this case. Okay. So now this is one of the ways to think about leveraging OPT, other people's time. Okay. So I was going through a coaching call and somebody said, Hung, you know what? I can't afford to pay somebody to do admin. And I'm like, what? An admin person, maybe $25 an hour, at the most 40, $50 an hour. Okay. If your base pay is 125, you cannot not afford this. You need to go and delegate. Okay. Because you're making $125. You pay somebody 50, or in this case, 25, you actually profit 100 by delegating. Okay. So it totally makes sense to go and delegate. Okay. Now, here's the thing. It's actually costing you more than $100 an hour if you don't delegate. Okay. It's actually costing you more than $25 if you don't delegate. Okay. So the way to think about this is that if you're making, whatever pay you're making, and if you don't delegate, you're actually losing this $125 an hour. So if you're not delegating and you're saying scanning, or if you're doing marketing or admin work, is that admin work worth $125? Probably not, right? It might be worth $25, $50. So go and delegate that. Okay. So many examples of when to delegate. So a couple of years ago, I actually hired a couple of kids who were older than my kid to walk him to school so that I could get back that 30 minutes each way, right? So 30 minutes to an hour, I paid some kids like 10, $20 a week, and I got, $100 an hour back from that. Okay. Or recently somebody asked me to teach them English, and it's like, well, yeah, I can teach you English and I'd be happy to work with you for maybe 30 minutes a week, but I can't do more than 30 minutes a week, because now if I spend 3 hours with you, that means 3 hours of my time is removed from focusing on my other projects that are higher dollar value, right? It's a focus for the projects that my priorities. The other way to think about it is that every single time you don't delegate out, okay, and you're doing this and you're doing admin work, you're actually robbing your family of that potential income. It's not your income, it's your family's income. Okay, so just a couple of ways to think about it. Okay, so now let's go into some more of the calculations here. Okay, so if you hire out, okay, so let's go to the option 2, because the option 2 is the do it yourself. Okay, so if you decide to do the admin work, and let's just say you do the admin work for 8 hours a week here. Okay. And so you are doing 8 hours a week of admin work. Okay. That means that you're not paying somebody else that money. Okay. So that's fine. But it means that you're losing out on your $125 an hour because you're focusing on doing admin work and you're not focusing on making that $125 an hour, which is closing sales or closing whatever you're supposed to be doing to make that 20,000 that you want. Okay. So your loss every single week is $1,000. That means you're losing $1,000 by not delegating. Okay, think of it that way. Like when I started looking at the numbers like this, when I first started on my business, I was like, oh my gosh, like I just need to delegate. Okay, so over the course of the month, you're losing $4,000 because you can't delegate, because you won't delegate. Okay, that's a lot of money to be losing, especially if your goal is to get to $20,000. Okay, now if you're okay, so that's the do it yourself situation, right? So basically, I'm basically trying to show you that you cannot not afford to hire out. Okay, like delegating is leveraging somebody's time, which is fantastic. It's the opportunity cost. Okay, so okay, so now if you go with option one, which is to hire out, okay, so your 8 hours is the same. If you were to pay somebody $25, okay, and we'll adjust some of the numbers here so that you could see the impact of this. But if you find somebody for $25 an hour, that means you're paying out $200 a week to have somebody to do this low cost task. Okay. So you're going to, okay. So the difference here is that you if you got back those 8 hours, right? So if you hire somebody out for those 8 hours, that means you get back those 8 hours and you're going to make $125 an hour. So that means you're actually going to make $1,000 while somebody else is doing all the admin work or whatever you're delegating off. So you actually make $1,000. Okay. Now you have to pay this other person. So that's fine. So you pay them, but you've made $800. Okay. And the difference of that is just what you made minus what you've had to pay the other person, which is this just the difference. So that's $800. Over the course of the month, that means you've gained $3,200. Okay. Think of the huge difference here. Like between making 3,000 versus losing 4,000, like the opportunity cost is what I mean by the losing. Okay. So it's not about like hustling more or doing more. Like we all only have 24 hours a day. We all only have X amount of money to put towards making money because the rest of the time we're sleeping, taking care of ourselves, being with our family, right? So we only have so many hours in the day to actually work. Okay. So, a lot of times I talk about a side hustle because I've got a bit of a side hustle going on right now too. But at the end of the day, I only want to work as little as possible. So it's not about working more. It's about doing the right type of tasks to get you to your 20,000. Okay. There's a gazillion things we could do. Like if you have a to-do list, it's a long list and then you just carry those things to the next day. What if you could truncate that down, focus on your primary items that makes you your 125? Okay. You then are going to be so much more successful at getting to your 20,000. Okay, so let's look at this. So let's run the numbers and let's just say, okay, you have to pay somebody $50 an hour. So we're going up here. So remember, you're just going to adjust the green cells here. Okay, so even if you double that amount, okay, look at this. Your loss is still the same. It doesn't matter, okay, because it's your time. It's the 125 that you're not paying yourself anymore, right? Okay, so what you want to look at here is that even if you had to pay somebody double the amount, so like $50 an hour, you are actually still ahead by $2,400. Okay, that is a big number. Okay, so that is what I have for you today, a short one on how to reverse engineer your goal, your financial goal in this case, and figure out at what point does it make sense to delegate? And the answer is right now. Okay. Based on how much dollar your base is. Okay. Figure that out, reverse engineer that, and then just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to start hiring somebody, even if it's for 4 hours, even if it's for you know, an hour a week, delegate that out. Okay, so let's say here, the admin hours, let's just say you delegate off 16 hours. Look at that. So at $50, oh, okay, this is huge. Okay, so if you double your admin time here, your loss is $8,000. That's huge. Okay, so let's go down and let's just say so you're only going to delegate 4 hours a week. So, you have somebody come in for half a day once a week to help you out. Okay, that is still like 2,000 bucks that it's costing you by not just hiring somebody for those 4 hours. Okay, now let's just run the numbers. I want to see, because usually when I start working with people, their passive income goal is $10,000 a month. Okay, so at $10,000, look at that. If you just delegate 4 hours to somebody, you are actually saving yourself $1,000, but you actually gain $200. Okay, now if you go up on this, then it becomes more. So let's just say you delegate one day off to somebody. Okay, now you actually make $400 just from doing that. Okay, so that is what I have for you today, people. Thank you so very much for watching. And a quick shout out to all of the individuals that came to the monthly mastermind last Friday. Thank you so much for that great session. It was, yeah, mid-month reviews are always super awesome to keep in mind. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into another episode of Money Matters. I'm your host, Huong Luu. Remember to like and subscribe depending on what platform you are watching this on. Okay, thanks, everybody. Bye.